You wouldn't believe what I did in the end. I know, bold way to start. But after everything that happened, after the lies, the gut punches, the fake smiles, trust me, you'd want to sit down for this one. Because I didn't just find out my wife was cheating on me. No, I uncovered something colder, calculated, and heartbreaking. And I didn't scream. I didn't flip a table. I just played my part. Perfectly. From the outside, we were that family. You know the type. Couple that always brought snacks to the soccer games, showed up early to cheer the team on, brought the loudest cowbells and the most embarrassing signs for our kid. Everyone knew Lisa. Blonde, charming, always smiling. The kind of woman who made strangers open up to her in grocery store lines. And then there was me, Ryan. Average guy, steady job, steady hands, steady heart. We had our son Ethan when we were both 24, young, broke, but in love. Or so I thought. Lisa was fiery, ambitious, always dreaming bigger than our small suburban town. I was her rock, she used to say, the one she could count on. We used to sit up late making plans. Lisa always wanted Ethan to have what we didn't. Opportunity, options, the best training. So when Ethan turned 10 and showed promise on the field, we signed him up for a more competitive soccer league, even if it meant longer drives and higher fees. That's when Coach Travis entered the picture. Now, if you've ever met a man who's too charming, like charming to the point of it being a red flag, that's Travis. He was the kind of guy who wore aviators even on cloudy days and called everyone champ or bro. Too many high fives, too much cologne. But the kids loved him. Ethan adored him. And Lisa? She laughed a little too hard at his jokes, touched his arm a little too easily when she thanked him after practice. At first, I told myself I was being insecure, jealous, but the feeling stuck. Gnawed. Grew. Lisa had started working out more, said she wanted to feel good, have more energy. Fair enough. But the gym sessions were oddly timed. Always right after Ethan's practice. Always lasting longer than seemed reasonable. I'd ask how it went, and she'd say great, but never look up from her phone. You know that sixth sense people talk about? The one where your gut knows before your brain does? Mine was screaming, but I ignored it. I didn't want to be that guy, paranoid, accusatory. Lisa was my wife. We had a family, a history. She wouldn't, right? Still, things were off. She stopped making eye contact, started smiling with just her mouth. You know the smile, the one people wear when they're hiding something. I'd ask how her day was, and she'd say busy or same as always and leave the room. I began coming home from work hoping she'd be gone, just so I wouldn't have to feel the weight of the silence between us. One night, I came across her gym bag lying open by the laundry machine. Normally, I wouldn't snoop, but something caught my eye, a small piece of paper. It wasn't a receipt or anything. It was a note. Same time as usual. Locker room side. Be quick. T. My stomach dropped. I didn't react. Not outwardly. I just walked upstairs, kissed Ethan goodnight, lay beside Lisa in bed, and stared at the ceiling for hours. You have no idea what it's like to suspect someone you've built a life with is lying to you. To sit beside them, knowing they're hiding something, maybe someone, and still say sleep well. But I needed more. I couldn't base my world ending on a scribbled note. So I watched. I waited. And over the next few weeks, the truth unraveled, one careless message at a time. I started collecting crumbs. At first by accident, then deliberately. Like a hunter on the trail, I followed signs. Only in this case, the prey was closer than ever, and it hurt more than anything I'd ever faced. After that note, I began to notice details I had once brushed off. She never left her phone unattended anymore. Even going to the bathroom, she'd take it with her. Notifications were always on silent. Sometimes when I walked into the room, she'd quickly lock the screen, like it was muscle memory. But I saw it. I remembered. I made myself a promise. No questions. No scenes. No confrontation. I wouldn't even let her suspect I had doubts. Everything from now on had to be calm, cold, strategic. For the first time in my life, I stopped being the dependable, naive husband. I became an observer and a judge. One evening, I came home early, on purpose. Normally I'd text her when I left the office, but that day I didn't. I entered through the back door. The house was quiet. Ethan was in his room, headphones on. Lisa was in the kitchen, talking on the phone. I stood in the hallway, holding my breath. No, he doesn't suspect anything, she said with a laugh. He's just clueless, like always. A punch to the chest. I had to lean against the wall. Then silence. She was listening to whoever was on the other end. Then again. Same time after practice. Yeah, just not like last time, okay? Someone could have seen. Last time. I repeated those words over and over in my head, so I wouldn't forget, so I could write them down later. It didn't even hurt anymore. I only felt cold. A sharp, focused cold. I knew right then and there that my marriage had become theater, and I had to play my part to the very end. That same night, I started acting. I remembered an old phone I had used for work, still in the drawer. I reset it, installed the call recorder app, and quietly hid it under the passenger seat in Lisa's car. It had enough memory to record several days' worth of activity. The next day, while she was in the shower, I opened her laptop. She hadn't changed the password, still the same one we made up years ago, in 2009. She'd cleared her browser history, but forgot about the cache. And in that cache, locations, search queries, an email like t.coach87 at. One tab still open to Google Maps, a restaurant on the other side of town. One I'd never been to with her. A dinner reservation from last Saturday. I needed more time. A few more puzzle pieces. And I knew I'd get them. The following night, I retrieved the phone from her car. Sat in the garage in the dark, listening to recordings with trembling fingers. You were amazing today, her voice said. Soft. Warm. A tone I hadn't heard in a long time. I still remember how you held me after the match. I stopped the recording, and for the first time in a long while, I cried. Not loudly. Not with tears, but I felt something inside me break. There were no more doubts. No more maybe, what if, or misunderstood. She was with him, and it had been going on longer than I ever imagined. Still, I said nothing. I didn't bring up the conversation. Didn't ask who he was. I walked into the house, smiled at her, kissed our son goodnight, and lay down next to the woman who betrayed me. The next morning, I brewed coffee, opened my laptop, and pulled up a spreadsheet. From that moment on, I wasn't her husband anymore. I was the architect of her downfall. You'd think that once you know for sure, once you have recordings, search histories, voices whispering proof into your ear, the pain would stop. But it doesn't. In fact, it gets worse. Because now, you're no longer afraid of being wrong. You're afraid of being right. I walked through the next few days like I was underwater. Everything slowed down. My smile was a little too fixed. My voice a little too calm. Lisa must have thought I was just tired. She didn't notice anything different. Good. But my mind? It was spinning. I kept hearing her voice, those soft compliments, that giggle she hadn't used with me in years. And him. Coach Travis. It made sense now. The private chats after practice, how he always found reasons to come talk to her. How his hand lingered on her back just a second too long when saying goodbye. There had been a moment a few weeks before. I remembered it so clearly now. We were all leaving the field. I'd forgotten my phone on the bleachers and went back to grab it. As I returned, I saw them by her car. She was laughing at something he said, and he leaned in, like he was going to whisper something. She saw me and instantly stepped back. Said something about running late. I smiled then. Trusted her. But now? Now I saw it for what it was. I decided to push further. If I was going to do this, if I was going to destroy their little fantasy, I needed to be certain of every single detail. That weekend, I forgot my wallet in Lisa's car and asked to borrow it while she was taking a nap. She handed me the keys half asleep, not even opening her eyes. Inside, I checked the center console. Nothing. Then I looked under the floor mat, a habit she had when hiding receipts. Bingo. A folded lunch bill from Grano's Bistro, 2 entrees, 2 drinks, 1 dessert split. Date? Wednesday. Time? 3:15 p.m. She'd told me she was working late that day. I remembered because I'd offered to pick Ethan up from school and she snapped, saying, "No." I said I'll do it. That night, I checked her calendar. There was a client meeting from 2 to 5 p.m. But when I clicked the entry, there were no details. No address. Just the word meeting. Her lies were getting lazy. Still, I didn't confront her. I kept playing the part. Loving husband. Distracted dad. A bit tired. A bit distant. Nothing too obvious. And then came the moment that burned into my brain forever. It was a Sunday morning. Ethan had an early match. Lisa was already dressed, makeup done, hairstyled, looking like she was heading to a wedding, not a kid's soccer game. We arrived at the field early. I went to grab coffees from the concession stand. On the way back, I took the longer route behind the bleachers, mostly out of habit. That's when I saw it. Coach Travis had just arrived. He parked crooked, like he was in a rush. Lisa walked up to him before anyone else had noticed, and she hugged him. Not one of those polite side hugs. Not a teen mom squeeze. This one was full body, slow, familiar. Her hands didn't just pat his back, they stayed there. He whispered something. She laughed quietly, and then he brushed a strand of hair from her face. My grip tightened around the coffee cups so hard one of the lids popped off. I didn't say a word. I walked back the other way, wiped the lid, returned to the bleachers with a smile. I watched them for the next hour. Every glance, every signal, every time she found an excuse to stand near him, talk to him, bump his shoulder with hers. And just like that, I had no more doubt. I had confirmation, but I wasn't just angry anymore. No, I was something much more dangerous. I was ready. That night, I sat down with a notebook and wrote down every move I would make. Not a plan of revenge. A sequence. A strategy. Because revenge is impulsive, sloppy, emotional. This would be art. And the first step was gathering more data. Hard proof. Enough to make sure no one, not her, not him, not a single court in the country, could ever question who was the villain in this story. I wasn't going to stop them. I was going to let them dig the hole, and then I'd bury them in it. The thing about betrayal is, once it finds a crack, it spreads like water through stone. Quiet, slow, unstoppable. And once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. In her voice when she answered the phone in another room. In the way she cleared her browser history before handing me the laptop. In how she started calling me babe again, forced, overly sweet, like someone overcompensating. I wasn't paranoid anymore. I was informed. But now, I needed to be precise. I spent the next few days acting normal. I made dinner, played cards with Ethan, even watched that dumb reality show Lisa loved, nodding at all the right parts. I let her believe the illusion was still intact, that I was the same guy, the safe guy. She had no idea the man sitting beside her was documenting everything. It began with the phone, not hers, mine. I bought a cheap second-hand one and loaded it with monitoring software. Nothing illegal, just effective. I paired it with a GPS tile and discreetly slipped the device into the back pocket of her gym bag. The signal would ping to my phone every 10 minutes. I'd know exactly where she was. Then came the audio recorder. A tiny, voice-activated device no bigger than a pin cap. I hid it in the lining of her car's trunk, stitched into the fabric with black thread. It only activated when it picked up conversation, so there wouldn't be hours of silence, just the moments that mattered. I gave it 3 days. 3 days pretending everything was fine. 3 days pretending I didn't know she was lying when she said she was going to see her cousin. 3 days of watching her kiss Ethan on the forehead, then leave the house like she wasn't about to commit emotional murder on us both. When she came back the third night, humming to herself and carrying a smoothie like she'd just conquered Pilates, I slipped outside and retrieved the device. I listened in the garage, sitting in my car with the doors closed. The audio was scratchy, engine sounds, road noise, but then it came through clear. You always make me feel like I'm the only woman in the world, Travis. You are, baby. Promise. Always. Laughter. Then silence. Then more laughter, a kind I hadn't heard in years. Then her voice again. Ryan has no clue. I think he's actually getting nicer. Can you believe that? I stopped the recording. My heart wasn't broken anymore. It was focused. I copied the recording to a drive, made backups. Then I went further. I installed keystroke tracking software on the home laptop, discreet, impossible to detect. It logged everything, email drafts, deleted messages, even passwords. I discovered she had a separate email. Not just personal, it was an entirely secret life. An inbox filled with flirtatious messages, secret bookings, disguised appointments. She and Travis weren't just having an affair, they had routines. Favorite places. Private jokes. A little corner of the world where I didn't exist. I printed it all. Every message. Every itinerary. I built a timeline. Pages and pages of dates, locations, screenshots, receipts. But I didn't confront her. I smiled more. Asked how her day was. Did the dishes. Played dumb. Because the moment I called her out, the game would be over. And I needed the game to keep going, just a little longer. I needed her to feel safe. Because people only get sloppy when they feel safe. There's a moment, when the weight of truth finally sinks into your bones, that you don't cry. You don't yell. You don't do anything, really. You just sit there. And let it crush you. That was me. 3 in the morning. Sitting alone in the kitchen. Laptop open. Coffee cold. and a folder titled Proof staring back at me from the desktop. Inside it, screenshots, audio files, GPS logs, dozens of documents, each one a nail in the coffin of the life I thought I had. She wasn't just cheating. She was comfortable cheating. She had systems, schedules. She was good at it. She knew when to clear her browser history, how to mute notifications, which lies were safest to repeat. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a slip. This was a pattern. And somehow that hurt more. I didn't tell anyone. Not at first. I kept going through the motions. Ethan still had school, still needed rides, still wanted to talk about soccer and space, and the weird kid in class who claimed his dad was a ninja. So I smiled. I showed up. I asked him about his homework and told him I was proud of him every single day. But inside, I was disintegrating. Until one night, I cracked. I ended up at Ben's house. My oldest friend. The guy who stood beside me at my wedding, who once gave me a pep talk in a Waffle House parking lot before a job interview. He opened the door, looked at my face, and didn't ask a thing. Just handed me a beer and nodded toward the couch. I told him everything. No dramatic build-up. Just facts. One by one. Like evidence in a trial. He listened. Didn't interrupt. And when I was done, he leaned back, let out a long breath, and said, "Damn." That was it. Not, "You should leave her." Not, "Fight for her." Just, "Damn." And it meant more than any lecture would have. He didn't try to fix it. He just sat in the mud with me. A few days later, I called a lawyer. Not to start a divorce. Not yet. I just needed information. I wanted to know my rights, the custody process, the financial landscape. And I found out something interesting. Almost everything in our life was under my name. The house, the car, the investments, even her credit cards. Lisa had always hated paperwork, said it gave her anxiety. So I did it all. And suddenly, that annoying quirk felt like an ace in my hand. But I didn't act on it. Not yet. I needed to be sure, not just of her guilt, but of my control. So I started taking steps. Quiet ones. I opened a new bank account. Transferred money slowly. Nothing that would raise alarms. I created a secure digital archive of everything. I reached out to a real estate agent, casually, about a rental property. Just exploring options, I said. I also began seeing a therapist. I didn't tell Lisa. She thought I was going to the gym. And in those quiet sessions, I talked through my rage, my grief, the humiliation, the feeling of being used, played, dismissed. My therapist didn't tell me to be strong or let it go. He just asked, "What are you going to do with all of this?" And that stuck with me, because he didn't mean the emotions. He meant the information. I realized then, I didn't just have pain. I had leverage, and I was done suffering. The man I had been, the loyal, trusting, hopeful version of me, he was gone. What stood in his place was someone new, someone with a plan. They say the best revenge is living well. I disagree. The best revenge is making sure the people who tried to destroy you watch you live well, after watching themselves fall apart. And I was going to make sure Lisa and Travis both got front row seats. After everything I had collected, the recordings, the GPS logs, the emails, the fake smiles, it was clear they believed they were untouchable, that their little romance was invisible, harmless, secret. But secrets rot, and I was ready to expose it all, just not yet. No, I needed something more theatrical. Not petty, not cruel, but unforgettable. It started with a new identity. Online, of course. I created a fake social media account. A woman. Athletic. Attractive. Recently divorced. I gave her a full backstory. Pictures, gym check-ins, motivational quotes, even a fake job as a fitness blogger. And then I followed Coach Travis. It took 3 days for him to follow back. 2 more for him to start liking posts. Within a week, he was commenting, casually at first, then flirty. "Hard work looks good on you. Need a workout partner?" I kept it slow. Made her seem hesitant. Curious. A little shy. Men like Travis? They love the chase more than the prize. Eventually, I had her DM him. Light banter. Innocent jokes. A coincidental mention of living near the same sports complex where he coached. It didn't take long before he asked to meet. I screenshot every message. Time-stamped, location tagged, verified through his own social accounts. I didn't need to trap him physically. I just needed him to try. Meanwhile, I dug into his past. Ben helped. He had friends in places that could access more than Google could. And what we found was gold. Travis had a history. A quietly fired position from another youth league 2 years prior. Rumors of parent complaints. No charges, no headlines, but enough smoke to suggest fire. I compiled it all, printed it, added it to the folder. I was building a case, not for court, but for consequence. And Lisa? She kept doing what she always did, pretending. She kissed Ethan goodnight like her soul wasn't rotting. Laughed at my jokes at dinner like she wasn't living two lives. Checked her phone under the table and smiled at texts she thought I'd never see. I watched it all, every move, and I smiled back. Because the plan was already in motion. I started losing things, little things. A receipt here, a login there. Left just visible enough for her to see, to wonder. Once, I left an old notebook open on my desk with scribbles that looked like a meeting schedule. She saw it. I could tell by the way her eyes lingered, by the question she almost asked but didn't. Good. I wanted her unsettled. I wanted her to feel what I had felt. The slow creep of suspicion, the itch you can't scratch, the dread you can't explain. I knew her psychology. I knew how she thought. She liked control. She liked feeling smarter than everyone else. And now I was making her feel like maybe, just maybe, she was losing it. Meanwhile, I scheduled a consultation with the local youth sports board. Just casual, concerns about coaching conduct, I said. No names. Yet. I also contacted a journalist friend of Ben's. Just to ask questions. Hypothetical ones. What kind of stories get attention around here? I asked. What gets traction? He mentioned youth sports scandals were always a hot topic, especially ones involving misuse of power. Interesting. By this point, I had a war chest. Evidence. Witnesses. A narrative. A motive. But most of all, timing. Because when everything fell, it wouldn't be a single bomb. It would be a controlled demolition. One that started with them thinking they were winning, right until the ground disappeared beneath their feet. By the time mid-October rolled around, I was no longer surviving. I was orchestrating. Everything I needed was in place. Evidence, timing, a willing audience, and the complete ignorance of two people who thought they were in control. That was the key. Let them think they're smart. Let them think they're ahead. Let them relax. Because that's when they fall hardest. I didn't want a confrontation. No screaming match. No theatrical breakup in the driveway. That would give them too much satisfaction. No, what I wanted was precision. A reveal so calculated, so final, they'd never recover from the fallout. I began with Coach Travis. Using the messages he had sent to my fake persona, I compiled a neat PDF, fully time-stamped, watermarked, with metadata preserved. Then I forwarded it, anonymously, to the Regional Youth League coordinator, the league's disciplinary board, and the head of the local school district. The subject line was simple. Concerns regarding coach behavior. Please review immediately. No signature. No clues. Just a flood of receipts too specific to ignore. I gave it 3 days. On day 4, I received a message from Ben. Travis suspended. Internal investigation opened. One piece down. Next came the whisper campaign. I didn't start any rumors. I just planted seeds. Quietly. I emailed a few parents anonymously from a massed email server. Simple messages. Phrases like, you should really look into who your kids are spending time with after practice. Ask your coach about his last job. Do you know where your donation money is going? Nothing concrete. Just doubt. In tight-knit suburban communities, doubt spreads faster than truth. The parents started talking. Some even pulled their kids from the team temporarily until things get clarified. The league sent out a statement denying any wrongdoing but promising a review of leadership conduct. The PR speak of a ship taking on water. And while all that brewed, I turned back to Lisa. It was harder with her, not because she was cautious, but because she was still in my house. Still smiling at me across the table. Still sending flirty texts to a man under investigation while I kissed her goodnight. But her guard was slipping. She started forgetting to lock her phone. Started reacting faster when I entered a room. She was getting sloppy, so I gave her one last little push. I told her I'd be going away for a corporate retreat. 2 nights, off the grid, spotty reception. I even showed her a fake itinerary and fake emails from work. She tried to hide her excitement, but couldn't quite mask the relief in her eyes. She thought she had 48 hours of freedom. I made sure she had them. I left Friday morning. Got coffee. Sat in a hotel lobby downtown with my laptop and waited. By noon, she was texting him. I could see it all. The tracking software gave me timestamps, location pings, message logs. They planned to meet at the old townhouse development across town. Quiet. private, familiar to them. I'd already bugged that location a week ago, just in case. By that evening, I had audio, clear, unmistakable audio, of them laughing, talking, making plans for the future. At one point, she even joked, "Sometimes I think I should have married you instead." "You still could," he said. "Just say the word." That was it. That was the moment I knew. She was never coming back. Not emotionally. Not morally. She had already moved on. She just hadn't told me yet. Perfect. I compiled all the new material, dated it, tagged it, added it to the archive. Then I created 3 copies. One for my lawyer, one for the backup drive, and one for the final move. Because I wasn't just ending this. I was going to broadcast it to the exact audience that mattered most. Lisa's parents, her boss, our mutual friends, the neighborhood group chat she loved so much. All of them would soon receive the truth, gently packaged, non-accusatory, purely factual. No rage, no insults, just a quiet presentation of reality, one they couldn't unsee. The dominoes were set. All I had to do now was tip the first one. Sunday morning. Still, crisp. One of those rare autumn days when everything feels balanced. The air, the light, the world. And I stood in our kitchen, watching the sun paint gold across the countertops, knowing exactly what I was about to do. It was time. Lisa was still asleep. I heard her faint breathing upstairs, muffled by layers of false comfort. She had no idea the storm was already rolling in. I logged into the drive. The folder was labeled simply, Clarity. Inside were curated files, audio clips, screenshots, logs. Clean, calm, verified. I didn't include anything crude, nothing salacious. Just facts. Their words. Their plans. Their choices. The first emails went out at 8:02 a.m. I started with Lisa's boss. A polished message, polite in tone. "Dear Mr. Kepler, I thought it appropriate to share some personal context involving Lisa that may soon become public. I believe transparency is better than surprise in professional environments. Please find attached a small dossier outlining the matter. No accusations. No demands. Just the truth. Next, her parents. Mr. and Mrs. Green. This is difficult to send, but I thought you deserved to know. Please review the contents of the attached file. It concerns Lisa and a man named Travis. I believe the documents speak for themselves." Then came the community group chat. The one she always moderated with emojis and passive-aggressive tone policing. There, I posted a public message. I won't go into personal details. But for those curious about recent coaching changes, a few files have been compiled regarding Mr. Travis's conduct. I thought transparency served the safety of the community. Attached was a link. I didn't sign it, but they knew it came from me. Then I sent a final, private message to Travis himself. "I imagine things are changing quickly for you. I hope you learn from this. I hope you stay far away from families in the future. P.S. The League doesn't appreciate men who repeat patterns. No threat, just closure." By 9:30 a.m., the responses began. First, Lisa's boss. One sentence. "Thank you for the heads up. This will be handled internally." Then her father. Not even a greeting. "What the hell is going on?" I didn't answer. Let them read. Let them see. By 10 a.m., the group chat had exploded. Half the neighborhood was speculating. Some were pretending not to be shocked. A few mothers privately thanked the sender. One even messaged, "I had a weird feeling about him for months." Travis's coaching career? Over. His name was already circulating in local sports forums, tied now not to a scandal, but to a careful, calm release of truths. And Lisa? She was still asleep. I waited until she came downstairs, robe on, coffee craving in her eyes, before I dropped the final piece. "You might want to check your phone," I said. She gave me that familiar look, half playful, half tired, and padded over to the counter. She picked up her phone and watched her world collapse in silence. First, the messages, then the calls. Notifications, red dots, banner alerts, piling one after another like incoming fire. Her expression didn't change at first. Then the color drained from her face. She sat, eyes wide, a slow, shaking breath. I said nothing. I sipped my coffee. She tried to speak. I raised my hand. "Don't. Just don't." She sat there, frozen. It was the first time I'd seen her without an answer. No lies. No smirks. No spin. Just the truth, standing tall and undeniable. I went upstairs, packed a small bag, and walked out the front door. Didn't slam it. Didn't look back. Let the pieces fall. I didn't go far. Just a small Airbnb across town, quiet, detached, with a back porch and a view of the woods. I needed space. Not to think. I'd done plenty of that. But to feel everything that I had been holding back. Grief. Relief. Sadness. Vindication. The strangest part? I wasn't angry anymore. The storm had passed. All that was left was the calm, a heavy, still, honest. And then, the knock. It came Monday morning. I knew it would. Lisa had called, texted, left voicemails. But I hadn't answered. I'd told her nothing. Left no note, no forwarding address, just silence and truth. That was louder than anything I could have said. She stood there, messy hair, red eyes, holding herself like a child lost in the crowd. I didn't say a word. Just stepped aside and let her in. She sat on the edge of the couch like she didn't belong in her own skin. Her voice shook. Why? I tilted my head. You mean, why didn't I scream? Break things? Leave a dramatic note? She nodded. I took a breath. Because that would have made me feel better. And I wasn't trying to feel better. I was trying to be clear. Her eyes watered. I made a mistake. No, I interrupted. You made a series of decisions. You don't trip and fall into someone's bed for 3 months straight. She swallowed hard. The mask she always wore, composure, charm, control, cracked right in front of me. You don't understand it. I raised my hand again. Stop. This isn't a debate. I'm not here to argue with you. I already know everything I need to know. She looked down. Is there someone else? The question caught me off guard. Not because of what it asked, but because of what it revealed. She wasn't asking if I was in love. She was asking if she'd been replaced. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. There will be. One day. Someone kind. Loyal. Someone who sees value in honesty, not manipulation. Someone I don't have to watch like a suspect. That landed like a stone between us. She flinched, then tried to shift the conversation. What about Ethan? Now that was the one thing that mattered. I looked her dead in the eyes. Ethan's the only reason I didn't burn everything to the ground. He's the reason I handled this quietly. Because no matter how badly you failed him, he still deserves peace. She opened her mouth. I stood up. Here's what's going to happen, I said, calmly. I've already spoken to my lawyer. We'll share custody 50-50, with a structured schedule. You'll stay at the house for now. I'll find a new place. I don't want him moved more than he already has been. She blinked. You're serious? I'm finished, Lisa. You burned it down. I'm just walking out through the ashes. Silence again. Long, hollow. And then, in a whisper, I never meant to hurt you. I looked at her, and for the first time, I believed her. Not because she was sincere, but because she never had to hurt me on purpose. She just had to love herself more than she respected me. And that's exactly what she'd done. I didn't reply. She left quietly. No door slam. No last word. Just one final glance, and then she was gone. I sat back on the couch. Alone again. But not broken. No longer wondering, doubting, second-guessing. It was over. The wreckage was behind me. And for the first time in months, I was free. 6 months later, I didn't recognize my own life. And I mean that in the best way possible. There were still echoes. Of course there were. There always are after something breaks, reminders in the quiet moments, flashes in the rearview mirror. But they no longer controlled me. They no longer defined me. Lisa and I finalized the divorce in February. Clean. Professional. No screaming matches. We communicated through lawyers and co-parenting apps. Every drop of drama was drained out of the process. She never once apologized again. I never asked her to. Because what would be the point? Closure didn't come from her regret. It came from my resolve. I moved into a small craftsman-style home just outside town. Nothing fancy. But it was mine. I picked out every piece of furniture, every color on the walls, every lamp and drawer and rug. I started over. And with every brushstroke, every rearranged bookshelf, I rebuilt not just a house. I rebuilt me. Ethan adjusted better than I expected. Kids are more resilient than we give them credit for. I kept his routine solid, made his bedroom in the new place look just like his old one, even got the glow-in-the-dark stars right. And I made a promise to him that he'd never again have to doubt where he stood in my life. He didn't need the details. He just needed stability. And that, I gave him. I also started therapy again. Not because I was falling apart, but because I didn't want to forget the lessons. Betrayal leaves deep marks, not just in how you trust others, but in how you see yourself. My therapist once said, you don't just need to forgive the one who hurt you. You need to forgive yourself for letting it happen. I wasn't there yet, but I was working on it. And somewhere along the way, something shifted. I started waking up earlier. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd make coffee and sit on the porch, listening to the wind move through the trees. Sometimes I'd read. Sometimes I'd just breathe. I'd never allowed myself stillness before. Now, it was my favorite part of the day. A few weeks ago, I met someone. Not through an app. Not at a bar. Just organically. At a bookshop, of all places. We reached for the same title. We laughed. Talked. She had kind eyes and asked real questions. We grabbed coffee. It felt natural. No sparks flying. No dramatic pull. Just peace. And after everything I'd lived through, peace was more than enough. I don't know where it'll go. I'm not rushing it. Not trying to fix the past by painting a new face over it. I've learned the difference between healing and hiding. I'm choosing healing. To anyone listening to this, if you've been betrayed, if you're still in that fog, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me. You will breathe again. You will laugh again. You will wake up one morning and not think about them. And when that day comes, you'll realize that your life didn't end when they walked away. It began. Mine did. Not the way I wanted, but exactly the way I needed. I was betrayed, lied to, dismantled, but I didn't stay broken. I built something stronger. And now? Now I live with the quiet power of a man who walked through fire and came out clean. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Did he do the right thing?